Okay, so we're still working with constraints. And so in your curriculum, make sure you turn the activity 1.3.3, constraining a sketch. Just a reminder, I'm going to kind of scroll up here and remind you what our goals are, what our objective, what we're trying to achieve. Okay, so the first one is create a computer model to represent a conceptual idea and inform design decisions. And two, create and constrain a 3D model to represent the physical characteristics of a design idea or physical object. Okay, so um, today, basically, what we're going to talk about automatic constraints. Automatic constraints are constraints that are created anytime you create a shape, a geometric sketch within a CAD program. It doesn't matter if you're working with Onshape, Fusion 360, Inventor, or the various other CAD programs. So, what these particular instructions are trying to get you to understand now, anytime when you're creating an object or creating a model, it's going to automatically create certain constraints. So, let's take a look at this information. Um, Constraints are often automatically applied by the software as you create a sketch in the CAD program. Sometimes you don't even realize the constraints are being applied. For instance, to ensure that a rectangle always remain a rectangle in a sketch, a CAD program will automatically apply constraints to enforce relationships that ensures opposite sides of the quadrilateral are parallel, adjacent sides are perpendicular, and appropriate endpoints of the sides are coincidence. You may have noticed while you were placing sketch elements in the sketch, you just created that software provided some notifications or indications on the fly. For instance, by temporarily displaying the horizontal constraint icon, it may have given you notice after placing the first endpoint of a line and while moving the cursor to the place the second endpoint that the new line was horizontal based on the current position of the cursor. If you click to place the final endpoint while the notification is displayed, the constraint will be applied automatically. So, um, what we're going to do is we're going to create this shape. Okay, so let me go to Onshape. And what we want to do is we want to create a new document. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it activity 1.3.3, INSTR for instruction. And I believe this is going to be instruction 9 through 15. Well, let's actually call it 9 through 14 because we're going to skip instruction 15. And I want to make sure I save that in the folder that I created called 1.3.3. The next steps is that it says to make sure we change the units to millimeters. So I'm going to click my three bars over here. I'm pointing to it right now to the left of my file name. And I'm going to click workspace units, and I'm going to change mine from inches to millimeter. And then I'm going to click the green check mark and accept it. I'm next going to go down to where it says Part Studio, and I want to rename that. So I'm going to right click. See if I can get that to work. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about that right now, but you should be able to right click that and rename it. So I'm not sure why it's not working. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to click top, and I'm going to create a sketch. And I'm going to make sure that my sketch will appear on the top plane. So I'm gonna click top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create this object right here. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go up to my line tool, but I'm gonna click the selection arrow to the right of the tool, and I'm gonna choose midpoint line because I'm gonna use the origin. So I'm gonna point to the origin. And so as I draw it, it's going to start from the center out. I'm then going to go back up to my line tool and I'm going to change it from the midpoint line to just line. And I'm going to start off, I'm going to try to make it symmetrical, but it will not be perfect. So I'm going to start off right here on the left side. I'm going to draw a line here. Now notice, as I create my object, this is creating automatic constraints. You guys see that? So this is a perpendicular constraint. So I'm going to finish drawing my object. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm then going to select, and I'm actually going to change this to make this a little bit. See if I can fix this. Oh, I have to open up my sketch. I'm going back to sketch. Yeah, I'm trying to make that vertical. Okay, there we go. So we know what constraints are. So as I'm change the shape, notice how these are always perpendicular. So every time I point to a constraint, it gives me a little symbol that tells me what kind of constraint it is. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to play around with your different constraints, similar to what you did in the last activity. So take a few seconds and play around with it. Notice as you play around with it, I want you to pay attention to how the shape changes. So as you're playing around with the different constraints, it says, and I'm looking at instruction 13, it says investigate how the constraints affect the sketch behavior by selecting individual lines and points and dragging them each using your mouse. And then it tells you to remove a few constraints and determine how it affects your behavior. It affects its behavior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just choose this as a horizontal line constraint. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to press delete to get rid of it. And then I'm going to play around with it and see how that affects it. So this is the perpendicular constraint. Notice how I change it. It always remains perpendicular to this line and this line. So if I was to click on the perpendicular constraint and press delete, let's see how it affects it. So delete your various constraints and see the effect, how it changes. Okay. Now, once you finish playing around with it, just keep pressing your undo to bring back all your constraints back. Now, another thing, also, one of the things that I really haven't pointed out to you guys, if you want to show all your different constraints, you could come up to your sketch panel and click show constraints, and it shows you all of your constraints that are available to you, that you created, excuse me, or that were automatically created. So, generally, me personally, I don't generally use this tool that much because as you're creating complicated shapes, it can become very overcrowded. But that tool is available to you. Now, instruction 15 says to discard the previous sketch. We're not going to do that. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and close out this document, and we're going to create a new document. So I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to click create new document. I want to make sure that I'm still in activity, my 1.3.3 folder. And I'm going to give it the name activity 1.3.3. And I'm going to call this one instruction 16. Let's call it 16 through 24. Nope, 16 through 29. So I'm going to choose the top again of my cube, and I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to make sure I put it on the top plane. And let's take a look at our instructions. So instruction 16 says begin a new sketch. We've already done that. Create a similar shape using lines and program suggested constraints. So basically, we're going to go back and create the same shape. So let's take a look at our instructions under that, based on how they want us to create it and what they want us to pay attention to. So if you look at 16A, it says line 1, place a line on the x-axis, allowing the software to suggest a horizontal constraint and automatically constrain the line. Line 2 is going to tell us to create a new line coincident with the left endpoint of the first line perpendicular to the original line per image. Select the line tool, click on the existing left endpoint of the first line, slowly move the cursor left and right as you move it upwards. Place the cursor so that the perpendicular indicator is displayed and click. A perpendicular constraint icon should automatically replace the small square at the intersection. Okay, so we're going to start off by clicking on the line tool. We're just going to click on the regular line tool, not the midpoint line tool. And we're going to draw a horizontal line. And line 2 says to create a new line coincident with the left endpoint. So I'm going to go back. Oops. All right, and so I'm going to create a new line. I'm going to press escape. Okay. So now, if you're looking at 16B, so we created our line coincident with the left endpoint of the first line and perpendicular to the original line per image. Okay. So it says select the line tool. Click on the left endpoint of the first line, which is what I've done. Okay, so we're going to, again, we're going to create our third line using the same. We're going to make sure it says using a similar approach at a third line that is perpendicular to the second in a similar way. So when I point to this, um, my perpendicular constraint symbol appears, and I'm going to draw another line. And so I'm going to draw another one, just like what we just drew before. So I'm actually going to press escape. Now I'm going to, my vertical constraint appears. So continue following your instructions to continue creating the shape. Actually, I'm going to undo that last one, because the sixth line, it tells me as you create the line, avoid any automatic constraints by placing the line slightly off horizontal. And the picture that it gives me is something like this. Okay, and for G, it says complete the sketch. And for line 7, it says enforce a parallel constraint with line 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it right there. And I'm actually going to press escape. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to choose my parallel constraint. And I'm going to click on the first one. And then I'm going to click on the second one to enforce a parallel constraint. Now I'm going to go back to my line tool. Line 8 says enforce a perpendicular constraint with line 4. So right here, Going to escape, and then I'm going to click the perpendicular constraint. Line 9 says enforce a parallel constraint with line 3. So you guys are going to have to make sure you're looking at your PLTW instructions when you create this. So for line 9, I'm going to choose a parallel constraint with line 3. So I'm going to line 3. And actually, I think I am going to change something here. Let's see if I can make that longer. And line 10 said connect the endpoints of line 1 and line 9. All right, so mine's going to be a little bit different than the book, which is fine. And then it says to finish the sketch. Now, with your teammates or with your individuals at your table, I want you to answer that reflection question. Did the sketch appearance change when you placed the line 10 and created a continuous loop? If so, how did the appearance change? So discuss that at your table. All right. So what we're going to do next, after you finish with your reflection question, I want you to go ahead and close this. And I want you to go back and open the previous one that you created. So I'm going to go back to my 1.3.3 folder. And let's see. And I'm going to open the one instruction 9 through 14. And I'm going to click on top. Okay. And so what you're going to do is I want you on your own, I want you to complete instruction 18 through instruction 18 through 29. Okay. And once you're finished, I want you to go ahead and upload that up to Google Classroom for today's assignment. Give me a multi-view drawing, and remember in your multi-view drawing, make sure the front view is in the lower left, top view is in the upper left, and on the right side, I want a side view, okay? Either a left view or a right view. I don't think it really matters. One other thing too. Just a reminder on how to create it's going to tell you to create a construction line. So in order to do that, I'm going to open my sketch, and I'm going to click my line tool, and then you're going to have the construction tool. I'm going to click that, and it's going to tell you to draw a construction line. So I'm going to do that, and it's going to give me like a dotted line. All right. If you have any questions, come up and talk to me.